The snail has more to say. Yay. So, One Piece chapter 1119, titled Emeth. So, we're just going to go into it. I have no other intro funny thing or anything like that. So, cover page is, of course, the Yamato cover story. And Yamato is now making his way through part of just one of the outskirts areas. I think he's on his way to Udon. And while on the way, he unfortunately ends up getting cornered by or not cornered, but he ends up getting kind of found by a bunch of kids. And these are kids who probably are very unaware of the fact of how much Yamato helped with fighting against Kaido and helped with fighting against the Beast Pirates and everything like that. And even if they are aware of this, because like there probably would have been like, okay, let's be honest here. I don't know if Momonosuke or one of the others would have been smart enough to be like, hey, we should probably do a press release that Yamato is an ally even though he's Kaido's son. It's like, we should probably do a press release about that. I don't know if that happened, and even if it did, these kids may not have heard about it, because one of them throws a stone, the kids start to throw stones at Yamato, kind of the way that we've seen in the past with, like, Robin had stones thrown at her when she was a kid on Ohara. Other instances, we've had people get stones thrown at them throughout the course of the story. Although I think with Robin, it was turned into a tomato. I think the same thing also happened to Conus on Skypiea. I think some of the citizens in the manga threw rocks at her, and then in the anime, I think it got turned into, like, fruit. Which I'm like, okay, I can kind of understand that. But Yamato got a rock thrown at him, probably, and it says here because they resent him as Kaido's son. They resent him being Kaido's son, but of course Yamato has had to deal with that his whole life, specifically over the last 20 years, ever since Yamato wanted to become like Odin. So Yamato has been dealing with that. Unfortunately, it's like you're either seen as Kaido's son, or you're going to be Odin, and maybe you're not able to be either one because nobody will accept you as either one, or you have to find the right people that will be like, yeah, your father's your father, but that doesn't mean that you are... That doesn't mean that you have to be like them. It is the sins inherited of the father, which is one of the themes of Wano. Of, the sins of the parents passed down as the sins of the child. Like how all the Kurozumis were hunted because of what Grandpappy Kurozumi did. And all of that. And how, that legacy was passed down when it probably shouldn't have been. All of that. So, going into the actual chapter, we cut back to inside of the Lavos phase, where we cut back into just like the main headquarters of the lab, where we see Stussy and Kaku talking. And Kaku is just telling her to go, Stussy, just go away. She's gotten him out of the bubble. How she got him out of the bubble, we don't know. Those bubbles are designed to go through a lot from everything we've seen. So, it's just like, I don't know, did she just poke it with something and it opened, and it, like, popped open? Is there, like, a special solution you have to rub on the bubble to get it to just dissolve? I don't know. That's an SBS question, I'm sure. But Kaku is just like, you knew this would be my response, right? Friends, don't make me laugh. I did respect you. You are a relentless associate. But nothing will sway Lucci when he comes back. And I was like, oh, that depends on whether or not Lucci's coming back. He kind of got, sliced and diced a bit by Zoro. And then scared out of his skin by a giant Itsumade. So, there's that. But Kaku, and we're going to see this because we see in one of the other panels that, like, Kaku is, like, turning away from Stussy. And he's, like, trying to hold back tears because he doesn't, like, he genuinely likes Stussy. And, like, that's one of the things that I liked about, like, what we saw with, like, just, like, the little bit that we saw with the CP0 agents while they were on their way to Egghead when it's, like, Lucci and Kaku and Stussy all discussing what's going on with, like, their mission to go and eliminate the Vegapunks, which, of course... The second Stussy probably found out she had to go and eliminate the Vegapunk, she's probably like, well, I'm pretty sure this is where my career as a CP0 agent ends, because I'm not going to betray the man who's basically my father. But, like, we have, like, them kind of, bickering, or not bickering back and forth, but, like, talking back and forth on the ship on the way there, and, and then when they get to Egghead, there's the bits where just, like, Stussy is acting like the big sister that knows everything, and Kaku keeps running off ahead and getting attacked by lasers, or jumping through an imaginary dragon, trying to attack it, and Stussy's just like, yeah, that's a hologram, yeah, there's a laser grid there, and then Kaku's just like, you couldn't have mentioned that before. And, like, their little dynamic there is just so cute and funny. And then Lucci is just being the very serious person off to the side, like, how did I end up with these two? Is, like, his look on like that. But, like, we saw that there was, like, this kind of friendship between between Stussy and Kaku. And so we're kind of seeing, like, basically, like, the end of that friendship here. But Kaku is just, like, just leave. And Stussy is crying, and she's just like, Kaku, and it's just like, he's thinking of himself like, she betrayed us, but I know why she betrayed us now. It's because, Vegapunk is, like, I don't know if he knows the full details of her being a clone, but, like, her having this friendship that goes back so long with Vegapunk and all of that, and that's why she betrayed the world government, but she still viewed, the CP0 agents as her friends. I wonder if there were nights where her and Khalifa days where her and Khalifa had their day off and they just went to the nail salon and got their nails done. And then they got their hair all done and pretty and everything like that. Or maybe Kaku really wanted to talk about giraffes at some point in time, and Stussy's like, sure, I'll listen, I like giraffes. And then maybe that's how they bonded initially. He's like, but I'm just a giraffe. Lucci's a leopard. And then she's like, hey, I think giraffes are cool. And he's just like, oh, yay, friend. It's like, I don't know. Like, we don't see her interact with any other CP0 agents besides them. And yeah, we saw them, them and, like, the tall guy that was at Marie Joie during Reverie. And even then, that's not really interacting with them. That's just, they're there. We don't see any, bantering back and forth like what we've seen with, like, Lucci or, like, Stussy and Kaku during, like, this arc. So there's that. So we don't see either of them the rest of this chapter. It's just his first page. Hopefully Kaku he's either going to wait there for Lucci to show back up again, or he's going to go try to find Lucci, and maybe they'll find a way to escape. I don't know. And then with Stussy, again, I don't know. She could have time to fly and catch up with the Straw Hat. She could do something where she stays behind and tries to help Jinbei and Zoro fight Nasjuro. She could do something else. I don't know. Back to the double Nikas. So we cut all the way back down to where the giant ship is, and we see Luffy and Bonnie still in their Nika forms, which is great. And Luffy is just, like, laughing. He's like, ha 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 ha, this is gonna be a blast. And, like, all of the Marines are just like, oh my god, that's Straw Hat's face. And it's just like his bounty poster, because of course his bounty poster got updated. And all the giants are like, it's Nika! And they're just, like, they're happy because, like, they recognize this symbol here for, like, what Luffy and Bonnie are supposed to be representing here. Plus, there's the drum beats in the background from Luffy's heartbeat, possibly from Bonnie's heartbeat as well, I hope, in regards to being able to copy that. Mars is still flying over the ship, and he's just like, 2 Nikas. I see. She made a facsimile with her age powers. Oh, well. Don't get ahead of yourselves. And then he just, like, hyper beams them. He just, like, hyper beams them, fire blasts them, whatever. And Luffy is just like, oh, yeah. And he's like, oh, yeah, focusing back in on Mars. And he's like, guys, nothing hurts these things, even if they're sliced or crushed. And he, like, balloons himself up, and he, like, takes the hit from, like, the attack from Mars to protect the ship, because of course if the ship burns they can't really escape. I mean, yeah, the giants might be able to swim for quite a distance, but Luffy and Bonnie both have devil fruits, so they can't swim. And also having a bunch of giants trying to swim all their way to Elbath is going to be a lot less useful than having, a ship be able to take them all the way to Elbath, because that would be faster. for the most part. Plus, that's just a lot of giants trying to swim, and that's just like an even bigger target for like the Gorosei to be able to aim at or something, or for the Marines to be able to hit. And Luffy just like makes himself big, and he's like taking the hit from the fire blast from Mars, and he's like, that's why I want you to give it your all and hurl me at him full force. And Sanji is just like, so all we can do is throw you straight at it. And Frankie is just like, give it our all, huh? You asked for it. And Bonnie's like, eyes kind of getting big, like, we're gonna attack Luffy. Why? I mean, my thoughts exactly there, kid. But I get, like, given what Luffy does, this kind of makes sense. And then we have Dory and Broggy both yelling at the crew. Or, like, one of them's yelling at Luffy and his group, and the other one's yelling at the crew. And one of them's like, I can still never tell them apart. I am sorry. I was so happy to see them in the latest episode, with them being back, with them, being with Shanks and everything on Elbaf. I was so happy to see that. Still can't tell which one's which. Sorry. I can't tell which one's which with Oimo and Kashi either most of the time. I know they look different, but I'm just like, I don't remember. I don't remember. Diss me if you want. But, like, one of them's like, we'll leave the bird to you guys. And the other one's like, stop dancing, you fools. Put out the fire and set sail. But they're like, what? But you were dancing too, Captain. And they're just, like, dancing in the background. It's just funny. You were doing it earlier, Captain. And then we cut back up to the sky where we see Luffy has reached out his hands. He's still, like, in his ballooned form. He's, like, covered in, like, burns now. Which, I mean, like, we kind of saw something similar happen on Wano when he was fighting against Kaido and Big Mom. And when he got hit by, I don't remember if it was a Boro breath or if it was, like, one of Big Mom's fire attacks, but they're like, how are you not burned? It's like, we can understand why you're kind of, immune to the lightning attacks that we throw at you because you're rubber, so that kind of makes sense. But how are you immune to fire? And he's just like, because guts. And it's just like, well, technically that's not true. You're technically immune to fire because you're kind of an embodiment of a sun god now that we know that, but still, hence why you can use, like, Red Hawk and stuff like that, where you can make fire, as like a reference to that. But like Luffy reaches out and he's grabbed Mars by his wings, and Mars is just like, what the heck just happened? And Luffy's just like, hurry up, I've got to, I've got a hold of it. So he's grabbed onto Mars, and then we have Sanji is building up his Ifrit Janbei hell memories, and he's just like, Captain's orders are absolute, Bonnie-chan. And it's just like, okay, fine, we're gonna attack the Captain. I guess this is what I'm doing now. And I mean, like, yeah, it is kind of this reference to, like, in battle with pirates and stuff, it's like, Captain's orders are absolute. So it's just like, yeah, you can kind of question him if you're not in battle or not in that type of a situation, and, like, question what the captain's doing, depending on how good of a relationship you have with your captain and how sane and not drunk your captain is when it comes to pirates. But in this case, it's like, Captain's orders, fire! And Sanji's building up his, Ifrit Janbei hell memories, and he's getting ready to hit Luffy with that. Frankie's using his impactful strong right, excuse me. And then Bonnie's just like, all right then, and she balloons her arm up like Luffy does, and, coats it in hockey. So this shows Bonnie has hockey, not that we didn't kind of already know that. I think that was hinted at some point in time that she knew hockey. I mean, like, she traveled around in the New World for 2 years on her own, plus her will in regards to wanting to find her father and find Nika and then find Vegapunk later on, gives her this drive. So it makes sense that Bonnie has hockey. I don't know if this is the first time we've seen her demonstrate armament hockey. I don't remember if we saw her demonstrate it earlier in the arc, but you get what I mean. And she's just like, giant Nika punch! And all of them just bam into the back of Luffy. And he's just like absorbing the impact. And then he's just like, ouch, that hurts. And Bonnie's like, what? It hurts? And he's like, well, yeah, you guys are using, of course it hurts. You guys are using hockey. Now, Sanji, I'm pretty sure his Ifrit Chombre attacks involve Haki. Bonnie was just proven that she can use Haki, given what we see here. I don't know about Frankie. We've never had any confirmation one way or the other that we've kind of had confirmation that Frankie doesn't have Haki. And it doesn't make sense for him to have just developed Haki. So it's like 2 out of the 3 using Luffy. Using Haki on Luffy is probably going to cause some form of, pain to Luffy, even with him being rubber. Even if it's just blunt impacts. But still gonna cause pain because its Haki is involved. And Luffy just, absorbs the attack and then has, pushed Mars into him. Kind of like how when he was fighting Cracker, he, sucked Cracker into him because, his, very big, overfull, tank man full form, sucked Cracker in and then, launched him out. So this is very similar to this, where he's doing this, where he's, taking in all of this impact from behind him and then has, pushed Mars into his stomach, and then it's just, poof, sends Mars flying. And, Sanji is just don't let up, Bonnie-chan. Frankie is just keep going till you've crushed the life out of him. And Bonnie is just what the F is wrong with you guys? With, her eyes bugging out of her sockets. She's just what the F is wrong with you guys? It's that is a good question, Bonnie. And you are not the first person to ask it. And you will not be the last. I am quite sure of that. Because almost every arc, they end up meeting someone that just sees the way that the crew all interact, and they're just something is very wrong with all of you. It's not a bad thing, but something is very wrong with all of you. Given the fact that 2 of Luffy's subordinates are attacking him to attack someone else. I'm I see where Bonnie's coming from. In regards to this. And then Luffy just releases this into the booming dawn balloon, where he just finishes inflating himself and uses the force coming from behind him to send Mars flying off into the sky. Very much like Team Rocket's blasting off again, as I saw in the references for the chapter, which just made me happy because I love Team Rocket. And so they're sent. So Mars is sent flying. So he's kind of gone for now. Depending on how freaking fast he can fly, he might get back here sooner. But he is the immediate threat of he's the one that can chase them down at the moment, given the fact that he has wings. The other ones seem to be fairly land trapped, but still, we'll have to see. And they're just it's all right, it's gone. It's it won't be back anytime soon. I hope not. And it's just let's get out of here. Let's get going, guys. And Luffy's still in his Nika form. So is Bonnie. She's just yay, in the background. And then Luffy's what about Usopp and the others? And Sanji is just they were meant to fly down and meet us here, but they're late. It's just well, they were chased by a giant skeleton horse, and we haven't seen them for 2 chapters. So hopefully they're fine. And Atlas is just I'll go check, and is flying off. I don't know if Atlas is flying up to go and try to figure out where they are. That does not seem the best idea in the world. But she is also using her telepathic communication to be able to communicate with Lilith. And she's York is monitoring us. Lilith, we're... So it's they know about that York is able to monitor them. And then we cut back down into the ocean, where we see the Iron Giant, and we see that the snail has kept going, has continued the broadcast, and it's just nothing of the sorts. That's why I'm going to finish reading what it says for what his what Vegapunk is saying, and then I'll go over what's going on in the panel. So he's just this is going off of and their name was stuff, blah, 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 that was going on in the last chapter. He's nothing of the sorts. That's why that carelessly inherited aspect, we can call it will. And to those that have suffered from this, I can only pray my voice reaches you. So he is, of course, referring to the concept in One Piece where there is this inherited will. Now, it is supposedly that, the world government, in regards to the Celestial Dragons and the Gorosei, have had this, inherited will from, the original founders of the world government that had the 20 kings, and the 19 that formed the Celestial Dragons, and, of course, however many of them are, have been part of the Gorosei over the years. and Eam is involved in this, I'm sure. So we have a lot of that. So there is that concept, but then there's the other side of things where it is like the inheritor will of like, Luffy inherited, like Roger's will via like Shanks, and, had heard about Roger, so he wants to become king of the pirates and everything like that, and how like, some of the other Straw Hats have like other ones that are part of their own will, like Frankie's will, is kind of inherited from Tom to a degree and stuff like that. Ace kind of went on and took on, like Whitebeard's will before he died and stuff like that. And, it's like, Yamato has kind of inherited, Yamato has inherited Odin's will, but so has Momonosuke. And like, this ability to, it doesn't matter if it's, familiar will being passed down, because, like as was demonstrated in the first page of this chapter where we have the cover page, there is, Yamato is being, ostracized yet again by these kids who are like, oh, you're Kaido's son, so you're bad. But it's just like, no, that is not the case here. And in this case, it's, the will of the government has been very oppressive to so many people all over the world, particularly those who either have been slaves or have had family that have been made into slaves. And then in regards to going into a bunch of these other, pirates' wills can end up being either very destructive for the people who they are around in regards to like all of the bad pirates, like how in like some of the initial parts of One Piece for like the initial concepts for like the two previous Romance Dawns versions 1 and version 2, there was like, like the Morganeers who were like the bad pillaging pirates, and then there were the Peacemaids, which was like the ones who were just in it for adventure. Yeah, treasure was good, but they weren't just gonna steal it from someone that was, an innocent civilian and stuff like that. Like, and I kind of wished Oda had done more with that a little bit more in the story, but I understand where it's like Luffy and his crew are like these representations of like the Peacemaids, and then like Blackbeard and such are like the representations of the Morganeers to a degree. In that regard, given the fact that Luffy and his crew tend not to just attack a place just because it's there, and Blackbeard and his crew will do that. So we have that. So this part of the message for Vegapunk is still being played all over the world, and we're going to cut to a couple of other places. So first, we're going to cut to Whole Cake Island, and we are going to see quite a few members of the Charlotte family here. So we see Katakuri. Love Katakuri. We also see Charlotte Brownie, and we also see Charlotte Moscato. We also see Zucto or something like that. I don't remember what exactly his name was. And such, but we see several members of the Charlotte family there. We also see like just like the top of her head. So so this is something I want to point out. I believe this is Charlotte Broye, and who is Brule's twin sister. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think Broye was part of the group that went to Wano. And if she's here, now we saw like Smoothie and Montour listening in on this in a previous chapter, listening in on the message in a previous chapter. So we know that they were still alive. And I believe Broye was one of the ones who went to Wano with Big Mom. And if she has made it back here, back to Whole Cake Island, then that means that she has that the rest of them are probably back as well. And we don't really... So in the background, we do see a bunch of the different like food houses. There's also like Charlotte Mobile, who's one of the long-armed hybrid children that Big Mom has. I think we also see Charlotte Kato or Kato, whatever his name is. It looks like a pumpkin. But I think those are the main ones that I recognize immediately in these pictures. But we don't see homies. So we don't know one way or the other. No, we do know that homies are at least able to still be around because Zeus is still around. But we don't see Big Mom. And we don't see anything else that would indicate one way or the other about what else is going on in Totland beyond the fact of, like, Pudding got captured. Although this is, like, the fact that Katakuri is here means that he's not out trying to find Pudding. But he might be like, yeah, we're in no shape to try to go up against Blackbeard, given the fact that Mama is either dead or comatose right now. We're gonna wait on that. We are gonna go get Pudding, but we have to wait for a better option before we can go and get her. So there's that. We see in this little exchange, we see Zakato, whatever his name is, I don't remember. I was just like, what is he talking about in regards to Vegapunk? And then we see Morgans and Vivi, and they're like, it's on, as in like the broadcast is on again. It's like, we cut to somewhere else. I don't know where this is. It might be Alabasta again, but I'm not sure. I can't see enough of the background. And they're just like, it's back on. Was it a bad signal? And York is like talking with the elders, and she's like, elders, you just interrupted the transmission. The snail's memory circuit is still intact. You have to destroy it directly if you want to shut it down for good. And then we cut to one of the other places where, well, the message is going on, but the people who are currently on said island aren't really able to hear it because they don't have any Denden Mushi. We see Gaiman and Starfunkel. Yay. As I mentioned, my niece is watching through One Piece for the first time with her fiance, and when I had mentioned that there's like, yeah, there's some filler in the East Blue, and she goes like, is Gaimon filler? And I'm like, no, dear, Gaimon's canon. I know it seems like it could be a filler arc the way that it's set, but no, it's canon. Gaimon's canon. And he gets a wife later, who's in a barrel, and it's a Simon and Garfunkel reference. And so all of that, so we get to see them. We also see like a rabbit snake, which I guess would be one of the few types of snakes I would ever want to own. It's a rabbit snake. Okay. Cutting back to where we have Luffy and the ship. So there's a lot more shaking going on, but there's also stuff raining down from the sky. And they're like, what the heck is that? What is going on? There's stuff raining from the sky. Was that an explosion? And they're like, no. And it's like out of the sky are falling all of these different Cypher Pull agents and a bunch of debris that are falling from the sky and landing on the ships. They're like, they're falling out of the sky. Catch them. They'll die. It's like, okay. We also see one of the Seraphim fall in the background. Because it's in a bubble, but I can't tell which one it is off the top of my head. No, it might be a snake, maybe, but I'm not sure. And the Seraphim are there as well, and they're in the bubbles. We see a Marine catching one of the Cypher Pull agents that's falling. Now, these are the Cypher Pull agents that had been sent to Egghead over the past several months to try to investigate what was going on with Vegapunk, and of course they couldn't find anything. And then they all got captured by by York. So more Cypher Pull agents got sent, and they kept getting higher and higher until eventually it got to CP0, of course. And of course, these guys were all locked up down in like the Devil Fruits experimentation area. Which had kind of been abandoned at that point in time. And, Luffy and the others had actually been, like, the ones to, like, save them and give them food. Yeah, they didn't, like, let them out yet of, like, the containment units they were in, or, like, the general area, but they gave them plenty of food and water. So they would be okay there. And, the Seraphim, of course, were trapped in the bubbles, but they're still under the orders of York to attack, the Straw Hat and attack Vegapunk and everything like that. So we'll have to see what happens there. Whether or not the Seraphim get out of their bubbles or not. They're very durable bubbles. So they're just like, oh my god, what's going on? And then they look over on the island and we see Jupiter, Sandworm Boy, just like spitting out all these Cypher Pull agents into the sky, and they're just like, look, and Luffy's like, look, old timers, that monster's spitting them out. It's like a fountain. It's like Luffy's just laughing. It's just like, really? And one of Doria Bragi is just like, it's coming for us. We gotta hurry and get some distance. And then Jupiter just kind of like turns towards them and then just starts sucking in so much air that it's acting like a vortex to try to suck back the giant ship. Also is going to affect all the different marine ships that are there as well, because they're a lot smaller. And it's just like, it's gonna suck us in. Move it. It was like, darn it, after all the progress we made, he's pulling us back. They just keep pulling me back in. And it's just like, for all the sails, use the oars instead. And Luffy's just like, screw this. And just like, armors up his fist, expands it, and just like punches Jupiter across the face, calling him a bastard. It's just like, and the rest of the pirate, Kashi or Oimo and one of the other pirates, or one of the other giants is just like, get him, Nika! And then we cut to where we see Doll, who is still a child, is just like, grrr. And I can't tell if it's a giant saying this or if it's supposed to be one of the Marines saying this. I think it's a Marine, and it's just like, a giant white monster and raining seraphim cipher pull agents. Even dreams aren't this wild. I was like, yeah, I'll have to agree with you there. Whose dream are you talking about, dude? And then we have Warcury showing up, and Warcury is just ready to... He's basically jumping off the island and getting ready to basically, like, headbutt the Great Eric, the giant ship. And Luffy's just like, damn it, the boar's heading right for you. Look out, his skin's really tough. And they're just like, it's gonna smash the ship. We gotta run. And we have this panel where it's like, Warcury is jumping, aiming for the ship. And then we cut down to where we have like, Bonnie's gone out of her, her Nika form. And she's just like, just like lying on the ground. She's back in her child form specifically. She's not in her like adult form. She's in like her natural 12-year-old child form. And Sanji's just like, Bonnie-chan, and she's like, I can't hold it. Being free is too tiring. I'm sure that's a commentary on something, but I don't know what. Are there any dictators in the world being stupid right now? Probably. But that is kind of a commentary on the fact that being free in regards to, like, Luffy wanting to be Nika, it literally exhausts him when he's in his freest form. It literally exhausts him. And Bonnie was just in this for, like, a fraction of the time that we've seen Luffy be in his Nika form, even if he's been able to recharge. She's still exhausted. Then again, as strong as Bonnie has gotten during the course of the story, which I would say she's gotten pretty strong, she's still 12 years old, people. She's still a child. She still does not have the stamina and the endurance of a 19-year-old like Luffy that has just spent most of his life just training and everything like that. And, all of that set up. And so we have that, and then we see a panel of the giant, like, kind of making its way, up through the water. Luffy looks down, because I think he senses it, and then the giant bursts through the water and just punches Warcury across the face, breaks one of, like, the fang tusk things that's there, breaks that. And we hear what is supposed to be the, I think the first kind of box that we see is, it says Joy Boy, and I think it's supposed to be the giant thinking about Joy Boy. And then we cut to where we hear what this is supposed to be Joy Boy's voice talking to the giant. And we finally get a name for the giant. So it's like, listen up, Emeth. I've seen nothing that indicates what Emeth means. I'm sure it probably means something in a certain language, but I don't know what. And it's just like, listen up, Emeth. The time is at hand. And then it kind of like cuts off in the memory, and the giant's like, the time? And like, so he's punched Warcury across the face, so that's awesome. Dory and Bragi just have their eyes popping out of their sockets as they see this of like, what the hell is that? Looking at the giant, which is just awesome because they have not seen the giant. And then Luffy is just his starry-eyed self, like he gets whatever he sees. Frankie unleash one of his new creations that he's made, like the Frankie's Shogun, and like, when Luffy saw the robot to begin with, and like, hey, can you make this thing move? All of that. It's like his big eyes, starry-eyed Luffy of just like, robot, because he's just so happy that he's seeing the robot moving again. Because I don't think... Was Luffy inside when the robot got tossed over the side over the ships? Was Luffy inside of the pirate ship at that point in time, or was he not at the coast yet? I don't remember, but like Luffy may not have seen that the giant was up and moving around. And it may have a little bit more of juice in it now because it does seem to be powered by, the drums of liberation that are played on Luffy's heart. And Luffy is still in Gear 5th. Bonnie was in her, Nika form for a little while there, and hopefully she was doing, the drums as well. So hopefully when we get to this part in the anime, I really love the Drums of Liberation soundtrack that they have. I love that. That they've been using. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they end up trying to do that when, like, Bonnie goes into this form, goes into her, like, Nika form, her most free form. And, there are so many people that were just like, oh, I don't like this thing of Bonnie going into this form, and it's not fair, she hasn't earned it. It's like, let the child who has believed in Nika her whole life, who has watched her father's memories and seen everything that he's gone through with losing his parents, with being a slave, with almost being killed, with managing to escape, with taking on the pains of so many of the citizens of his kingdom, and all of this other stuff, with losing the woman that he loved, and with raising Bonnie, and then with having to, give up being in the Revolutionary Army in order to help take care of Bonnie, and all of this other stuff. And now with everything that he went through with becoming a cyborg, all at the cost to try to save Bonnie and everything like that from the Sapphire Skills, let the child have this. Let the 12-year-old have her chance to fight against the people who are the reason that she is in this situation in the first place. Yes, would have been extra cathartic to get to see her punch Saturn in one of these cases, but it was great getting to see her do this here. And no, she's not nearly as strong as Luffy is. She's not. That's fine. But give the girl the chance to have this moment here, to embrace being able to be this free for a little while. I didn't like that people were like, no, Bonnie didn't earn this. She hasn't trained like Luffy has. She's not getting the exact same power Luffy has. She is having a portion of the power for a portion of the time. It is not meant to be something that she can go into this form all the time. As she said, it is very tiring and exhausting. And even Luffy has a time limit for how long he can be in this form. And, I had 2 points here that I was trying to make. One, I love the fact that the giant punched Mercury and that he broke Fang. That's great. And then he broke one of his tusks. That's awesome. Hopefully the robot will be able to fight a bit more. And we'll see what happens there. The other thing is that now that we've seen, now, I would say it a little bit if it had been like this form of Bonnie in the Nika form had been able to last for several chapters over the course of an hour or something in the time frame. That's a bit much. That's a little bit too much. But it didn't last very long. She got 2 attacks off, if that, and then now she's, floated around as Joy Boy for a little bit, as Joy Girl for a little bit, and now she's gone back into her child form. She got the chance to fight alongside what is currently the embodiment of who is basically this superhero that her and her father have read about all of her life. That she has read about Nika's stories and adventures and everything like that from the Nika Bible or whatever that she's heard her father talk about for her whole life. And it is this great moment of when Bonnie is a kid, she asks if, Nika will be able to help her be free. And Kuma is yes, he will. And that was culminated in the moment where she was able to turn into her Nika form, this Nika form. And no, she may not be able to do it all on her own again, and she may have to do some training with it, and probably one of the catalyst factors in regards to her being able to do this is the fact that Luffy is right there next to her, and is warping what is considered reality with his Toon Force powers, which gives her the ability to turn into this Nika form in the first place. And I want to point this out because Archer at the Library of Ohara, on his channel for his review for the chapter last week, had an amazing speech about this in his video, and I'll probably try to link it in the description below, for his review from last chapter, from 11:18, in regards to his opinion on Bonnie being able to turn into this Nika form. And the fact of, I love that she was able to do this because it is this concept of, and he did it much better in words, and I'm just paraphrasing him here. It was this concept of, you know, Bonnie is the case of reading a story her whole life. And now it's culminating in her meeting like the current embodiment of the person from that story and seeing what is potential here, what her potential can be, that she herself can be brought to freedom because of this. And Artur made it this, made the comparison to the fact that, like, in our world, Luffy is this cartoon character, and he has done so much to bring so much joy and happiness to like people all over the world. And like he used clips from like when, you know, the Vegas sphere where they were like showing, you know, pieces of One Piece from the past 20 something years, 25 years or so on like the big dome in Vegas and everything like that, and how that was like part of that, and like that was part of that celebration, and all these other places where like One Piece has had such a big impact on people, not just in Japan and not just in America, but in countries all over the world, and how popular it is. And all of that, and how Luffy is this representation of like bringing so much joy that it's like it is this, you know, comparison of the fact of like Bonnie has been reading about Nika all this stuff, and he brought her this joy and is giving her this chance, and Luffy brings us so much joy in our world, just by us reading about these stories and everything like that. And it doesn't have to be just Luffy that does it. It's other characters as well. You want to look at My Hero, you can look at that. You want to look at Disney movies from the Disney Dork, do that. You want to look at, you know, Pokemon or, you know, DC or Marvel or anything else. Harry Potter, so many other anime, whatever you want to go with. So many other books, movies, shows, you know, House of the Dragon just came back, you know, that'll work, you know, whatever else you want to go with. It is this concept of these fictional characters that you connect with, and that they can help, they give you an outlet for you to be able to express certain emotions in this regard. And I love how Artur was able to phrase that in his video, and that's why I'm going to mark the video below, although I'm pretty sure people have probably watched it a lot more than they will ever watch with this video, but still, credit where credit is due. But it will be very interesting to see if down the line, if Bonnie is able to go back into this Nika form again. Like, is she going to do more training on Elbaf when they get to Elbaf? Is she going to do something else? Is she going to see about having her and Luffy try to train together a little bit, where like he goes into the Nika form so he can practice getting more used to his Nika form, and then just be able to like gorge himself on the giant food and go back and keep doing it to try to like extend however long he can be in the Nika form, and then maybe have Bonnie train with him a bit as well. That would be something that they could try to focus on or try to do. I don't expect there to be like a big time skip of like, oh, we spent a month letting Bonnie and Luffy train. It's like, no, I don't think that's going to happen. But even like a little bit of something, or like another moment down the line where Bonnie goes back into this form to, you know, help with being able to fight against something. I don't think she's going to be doing too much else for the rest of this fight until they get way past and out of Elbaf, or once they get to Elbaf or something, once they get away from Egghead Island. We'll have to see what happens, but that's what I got here. We are on break next week, so that'll be that. There was kind of a video I'm thinking about doing in regards to like Yamato's cover story, in regards to what I think might happen, or like what would be like an interesting thing that could happen there. So I might do that next week. I haven't decided yet. We'll see. I need to kind of work on that idea a little bit more. But yeah, so the chapter ends with Luffy just being like, oh my god, Robot is so awesome, and I love that. And like the little caption from like the editor is just like, the romance lives on, as in like the romance with adventure and everything like that, which is of course what One Piece is about. So that's what we have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!